Speak of me as I am. Let nothing accentuate of one who loved not too wisely, but too well. For never was there a story of more woe than that of Othello and Desdemona. Oh, Desi!
Can we have some lights, please? So, we left Rachel on her own to do research for this play, and she must have thought that a moor is a place where you keep boats.
Which in this context, ladies and gentlemen, is totally pea-brained. In the 16th century, Moor referred to a black person.
Just kind of join in.
Okay.
Here's a story of a brother named Othello. He liked white women and he liked green jello.
And a punk named Iago who made himself a menace because he didn't like Othello the Moor of Venice.
Now Othello got married to Desdemona.
But he took up for the wars and he left her alone.
It wasn't Mona.
A grown-up. He left her alone.
He didn't write a letter, and he didn't telephone, and Desdemona, she was faithful, she was chastity tight, she was the daughter of a duke.
Yeah, she was totally white. But Iago had a plan that was clever and slick.
He was crafty, he was sly.
He was sort of a dick.
He said a white shop before.
How you gonna do it?
Tell us.
Well, I know his tragic flaw is that he's
Too damn jealous.
Need a duke, I need a dop, I need a kind of schmo.
So we find a chump sucker by the name of Cassio.
And he plants on him Desdemona's handkerchief, so Othello gets to wondering, just maybe if, while he's been out fighting, commanding an army.
Are Desi and Cass playing hide the salami? Salami? Salami!
So he came back home and a pillow on her face.
Kills her, soliloquizes about his disgrace.
But there's Amelia at the door.
Who we met in Act 4.
She says you're a dummy. You don't. She says you're a dummy. You aren't no whore. She was
Pure, clean, virginal too. So why'd you have to go and make your face turn blue?
It's true.
It's you.
Know what you gotta do. And Othello says,
Yo, this is getting pretty scary.
So he pulled out his blade and committed Harry-Carry.
Iago got caught, but he probably copped a plea.
Loaded up his bags
And
and
moved to Beverly
Hills, that is!
Take a break from all this heavy tragedy and move on to the comedies for a while.
Comedies. Yeah, great. Comedies. Okay.
So, Shakespeare was a genius at borrowing and adapting plot devices from different theatrical traditions. Yes, he was. Indeed, he was. He was a genius, really smart. He was so smart, in fact, that he borrowed and adapted different plot devices from multiple theatrical traditions. That's what he did.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. These influences include the Roman plays of Ovid's Metamorphoses, which are hysterically funny. Not! Claudius and Terence, and the rich Italian tradition of Commedia dell'arte.
Yeah, basically Shakespeare stole everything he ever wrote.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Stole is kind of strong, dude. Distilled, maybe.
Well, then he distilled the 3 or 4 funniest gimmicks of his time and milked them into 16 plays.
You see, essentially, once Shakespeare found a plot device that worked, he used it.
Over and over and over again.
So the question we have is this, Mr. Shakespeare.
Why'd you have to write 16 comedies when you could have written just one?
In answer to this question, we of the Reduced Shakespeare Company have taken the liberty of reducing all 16 of Shakespeare's comedies into one, which we call the comedy of 2 well-measured gentlemen lost in the merry wives of Venice on a midsummer's 12th night in May.
Or Cymbeline, Taming Pericles, The Merchant, and The Tempest of Love, as much as you like it for nothing. Or The Love Boat Goes to Verona.
Comedy?
Comedy!
Comedy.
Act 1. A Spanish duke swears an oath of celibacy and turns the rule of his kingdom over to a sadistic and tyrannical twin brother. He learns some fantastical feats of magic and sets sail for the golden age of Greece along with his daughters, 3 beautiful and virginal sets of identical twins. While rounding the hill of Italy, the duke's ship is caught in a terrible tempest which, in its fury, casts the duke up on a desert island along along with the loveliest and most virginal of his daughters, who stumbles into a cave where she is molested by a creature who is either a man or fish or both.
Act 2. The long-lost children of the Duke's brother, also coincidentally 3 sets of identical twins, have just arrived in Italy. Though still possessed of an inner nobility, they are ragged, destitute, penniless, flea-infested shadows of the men they once were, and in the utmost extremity are forced to borrow money from an old Jew, who deceives them by putting down their brains as collateral on the loan. Meanwhile, the 6 brothers fall in love with 6 Italian sisters, 3 of whom are contentious, sharp-tongued little shrews, while the other 3 are submissive, airheaded little bimbos.
Act 3. The shipwrecked identical daughters of the Duke wash up on the shores of Italy, disguise themselves as men, and become pages to the shrew and matchmakers to the Duke's brother's sons. They lead all the lovers into a nearby forest where, on a midsummer's night, a bunch of mischievous fairies squeeze the aphroditic juice of a hermaphroditic flower in the shrews' eyes, causing them to fall in love with their own pages, who in turn have fallen in love with the Duke's brother's sons, while the queen of the fairies seduces a jackass and they all have a lovely orgy.
The elderly fathers of the Italian sisters, finding their daughters missing, dispatch their messages to the pages, telling them to kill any man in the vicinity.
However, unable to find any men in the forest, the messengers, in a final, misguided act of loyalty, deliver the messages to each other and kill themselves.
Meanwhile, the fish creature and the Duke arrive in the forest disguised as Russians and for no apparent reason perform a 2-man underwater version of Uncle Vanya.
Act 5.
The Duke commands the fairies to right their wrongs.
The pages and the bimbos get in a knockdown, drag-out fight in the mud.
During which the pages' clothes get ripped off, revealing female genitalia.
The Duke recognizes his daughter.
The Duke's brother's sons recognize their uncle.
One of the bimbos grows up to be Vanna White.
And they all get married and go out to dinner.
Except for a minor character who in the second act is eaten by a bear, and the Duke's brother's sons, who, unable to pay back the old Jew, give themselves lobotomies. And they all live happily ever after. We now move on to the rest of Shakespeare's tragedies. Because, basically, we've seen that the comedies aren't half as funny as the tragedies. Take, for example, Shakespeare's Scottish play, Mac. Sorry, I forgot. What you're really not supposed to say to the theater unless you're performing it, because it's cursed.
Boga, boga!
Fortunately, we of the reduced Shakespeare company have been able to perfect Macbeth and are able to do so in perfect Scottish accents. Rachel, yes.
Perfect Scottish accent.
Toil and trouble.
Stay, you imperfect Mac speaker! Mac tell Mac more!
Macbeth! None shall harm Macbeth till Burnham Wood come to Dunsinane, don't you know?
Oh, that's dead great! Then Mac what Mac need Mac I Mac fear of Macduff!
Ha!
Ah!
See you, Jimmy, and know that I was from my mother's room untimely knit. What do you think about that?
I think it's bloody disgusting! Lay on, you great haggis face!
Oh, Macbeth, ye killed my wife, ye murdered my babies, and ye shot in my stew.
Oh, I didn't eh?
Ah, you beast, and pass it away.
Well then come at me, bro!
Behold, where lies the usurper's cursed head. Macbeth, your ass is out the windy. And know that never was there a tale of more blood and death than that of Mr. and Mrs. Macbeth. Thank ye.
Meanwhile, Julius Caesar was a much-beloved tyrant. All hail Julius Caesar!
Hail, citizens!
Who was warned by a soothsayer.
Beware the Ides of March.
The great Caesar, however, chose to ignore this warning.
What the hell are the Ides of March?
The 15th of March.
Oh, that's today!
Friends, Romans, lend me your ears. I come to bury the great Caesar. So let's bury him and get on with my play, Antony!
And Cleopatra! Is this an asp I see before me? Ugh!